9mm. Georg Luger designed the cartridge in 1901 by enlarging the 7.65 by 21mm case to accept a 9mm projectile and paired it with the Luger pistol soon after. The German Navy adopted it in 1904 and the Army in 1908, and wartime distribution pushed it across Europe. NATO later standardized it during the Cold War, and the U.S. military selected it in 1985 with the Beretta M9 after decades of .45 ACP service. The cartridge is also known as 9mm Luger 9x19 Parabellum and 9mm NATO, while the 9 persists as a shop floor nickname. Typical bullets run from 115 to 147 grains, with velocities around 1,000 to 1,300 feet per second, depending on barrel length and loading. SAMI pressure sits at roughly 35,000 psi with +P, and occasional +P+ offerings that trade recoil for speed. The FBI returned to it in late 2015 after modern jacketed hollow points delivered reliable expansion and penetration without the recoil and training burden of the .40 S&W. Military forces across NATO rely on it, and American law enforcement shifted to the controversial P-320 with military designations M17 and M18 service pistols. By 2017, both are chambered in 9mm. Civilians gravitated to the same benefits: capacity, manageable recoil, and abundant platforms, cementing its position as the default defensive handgun round. 45 ACP. The U.S. experience in the Philippine-American War exposed the weakness of 38 long Colt service revolvers against determined adversaries. Ordnance boards then sought a .45 caliber auto-loading round using smokeless powder, and John Browning designed one with Colt, culminating in the adoption of the Model 1911 pistol and .45 automatic cartridge in 1911. Standard ball ammunition uses a 230 grain bullet at roughly 850 feet per second at modest pressures around 21,000 psi. The low operating pressure encourages long service life and a gentle recoil impulse relative to its caliber, and the straight-walled rimless case feeds reliably in well-built pistols. The cartridge served through 2 World Wars, Korea and Vietnam, in pistols and in submachine guns such as the Thompson and M3. Law enforcement agencies used it widely in the mid-20th century, and civilian shooters kept it alive in service pistols and competition. Ammunition spans hardball traditional and bonded hollow points, monolithic copper designs, and niche loads. Many modern units moved to 9mm for logistics capacity and training economy. But .45 ACP remains in production across countless 1911s double stacks and even revolvers that use moon clips. The cartridge endures as a large-bore sidearm option with proven history and some of the broadest commercial support. 22 long rifle. The lineage begins with Louis-Nicolas Flaubert's 1845 rimfire BB cap for indoor gallery shooting, then moves through Smith & Wesson's 1857-22 rimfire revolver cartridge and the 1871.22 long. J. Stevens Arms and Tool Company created the 22 long rifle in 1887 by combining the long's case with a heavier 40-grain bullet, and that formula defined modern rimfire shooting. Most loads use 30-40 grain bullets. Standard velocity hovers near the transonic region around 1,095 feet per second from rifle barrels, while high velocity approaches 1,200 and hypervelocity can exceed 1,500 with lighter projectiles. The platform selection is unmatched: bolt actions, semi-automatics levers, pumps, single shots, revolvers, and pistols, plus specialized suppressed builds. Recreational shooters use it for inexpensive practice, and small game and formal disciplines stretch from NRL 22 to Olympic competition. Military and intelligence services have used it where quiet operation matters, and aircrew survival guns paired 22 with a small shotgun bore for versatility. Ammunition catalogs show an enormous spread: subsonic rounds for suppressors, shot shells for pests, hollow points for small game, and match offerings for precision. The 22 LR remains the universal entry point for new shooters, and its low recoil, modest report, and affordable training value keep it dominant. .357 Magnum. Smith & Wesson introduced the .357 Magnum to the public in 1935 after development through 1934. Designers Elmer Keith Philip Sharp and Douglas Wesson lengthened the .38 special case to prevent accidental chambering in older revolvers, then paired it with sturdy metallurgy to handle markedly higher pressures. The first revolver, the registered Magnum, later known as the Model 27, set a premium standard with custom features. Early loads pushed a 158-grain bullet to around 1,500 feet per second from long test barrels, which gave police a response to automobile bodies and early ballistic vests that blunted .38 special performance. Fun fact, the name Magnum was borrowed from oversized champagne bottles, marking the first time the term was applied to ammunition. That association with larger and more powerful became a naming convention for many subsequent cartridges. Bullet weights commonly run from 125 to 158 grains, and pressures sit near 35,000 psi. The cartridge accepts .38 special ammunition for economical training and reduced recoil, which made mixed-load regimens practical. Police departments across the United States fielded .357 Magnum revolvers for decades, and the FBI and state highway patrols used them during periods when road interdiction and vehicle barriers challenged sidearms. Hunters carried long-barreled versions for deer-sized game at close range and for defense where handguns were preferred. Production remained strong across Smith & Wesson, Ruger Colt, and others, and the .357 retains its place as the origin of the Magnum family. 10mm auto. Development of the 10mm traces to the 1970s when Jeff Cooper and collaborators pursued a .40 caliber auto-loading cartridge that delivered a 200-grain bullet at serviceable speeds. Dornauer and Dixon introduced the Bren 10 pistol in 1983, and Norma loaded the new 10mm auto to robust performance for that launch. Early ammunition pushed 200-grain bullets to roughly 1/200 feet per second, bringing energy on par with mid-range .41 Magnum revolver loads. SAMI pressure registers around 37,500 psi, and bullet weights span roughly 135 to 230 grains, which lets manufacturers tune loads for defense hunting or barrier work. The FBI selected the 10mm in the aftermath of the 1986 Miami shootout, but soon requested reduced recoil ammunition to improve qualification rates. That reduced load inspired the shorter .40 S&W, which fit into 9mm-sized frames and saw far wider service adoption. The Bren 10 suffered production issues, but other platforms kept the cartridge alive. Colt's Delta Elite, Smith & Wesson's 1000 series, and Glock's G20 family among them. Outdoorsmen later adopted the cartridge for backcountry defense and medium game hunting, and law enforcement special teams experimented with it in pistols and PDWs like the MP10 and the KRIS Vector. The modern market supports both full-power hunting loads and softer defensive offerings, and the 10mm occupies a durable niche. 12-gauge shotgun shells. Smoothbore shoulder arms evolved from early fowling pieces to practical breech loaders during the 19th century, and standardized paper and brass shells brought reliability. Smokeless powder and robust actions shaped the modern 12-gauge era, while iconic pump-action designs, such as the Remington 870 and Mossberg 500, carried it into police cruisers, duck blinds, and home gun racks. The gauge system describes bore size by the number of lead balls of bore diameter that equal 1 pound, so 12 spheres make a 12-gauge. Typical bore diameter is about 0.729 inches. Common shell lengths are 2 3/4 and 3.5 inches, with longer hulls carrying more shot and powder. Load categories include birdshot for small game and clays, buckshot for deer and defense, and solid slugs for large game or barrier defeat. Specialty loads extend to breaching less lethal options and frangible designs. Civilian use spans hunting sporting clays and home defense. Law enforcement agencies relied on the 12-gauge for close-quarters stopping power and door breaching, and military units fielded trench guns in 2 world wars and beyond. The U.S. Marine Corps adopted the semi-automatic Benelli M1014 M4 in the 90s. Modern plastic hulls, buffered shot, and non-toxic pellets keep development active, and production remains worldwide. 5.56 x 45 mm NATO. The cartridge grew out of the late 1950s Armalite and Remington effort to deliver a lightweight, controllable round for the AR-15. Engineers started from the .222 Remington, progressed through the .222 Special, and commercialized the .23 Remington, while the military refined a 5.56 x 45 mm loading. The U.S. fielded 55-grain M193 ammunition in Vietnam, with the M16 rifle. Then NATO standardized a 62-grain projectile with a steel penetrator as SS-109 M855 in 1980. Typical bullet weights range from 55 to 77 grains. Velocities approach 3,000 feet per second from 20-inch barrels, which yields flat trajectories and manageable recoil. Later developments addressed terminal performance and barrier consistency. The U.S. Army's M855A1 Enhanced Performance Round uses a copper slug with an exposed steel penetrator. The Marine Corps adopted the Mk3N18, and Special Operations units employ the 77-grain Mk262 for precision at extended distance. The cartridge serves as the standard infantry round across NATO and in many partner nations, powering rifles, carbines, light machine guns, and designated marksman platforms. Police tactical teams favor 5.56 carbines for accuracy and controllability indoors. Civilian shooters embraced it through the AR-15, where plentiful ammunition and interchangeable parts made training and competition straightforward. Experiments with newer intermediate calibers continue, but the 5.56 endures as the most popular intermediate rifle cartridge across the United States and much of the Allied world. 308 Winchester. Winchester introduced the 308 Winchester in 1952 as the commercial counterpart to the U.S. TT-5 program that produced 7.62 51 mm NATO, adopted in 1954. The new cartridge delivered .30-06-like performance in a short action that allowed lighter receivers and shorter bolt throws. Typical hunting and service bullets weigh 150 to 175 grains and achieve around 2,600 to 2,800 feet per second, depending on barrel length. Recoil stays manageable for field rifles, which helped the 308 become a standard for general big game use. Military service spanned battle rifles such as the M14 and FN/FAL general-purpose machine guns like the M60 and later M240 families, and sniper systems including the U.S. Marine Corps M40 and the Army's M24. Police agencies adopted 308 bolt-action rifles for precision at urban distances, and civilian marksmen used it in high-power Palma and practical precision matches. The cartridge also seeded a family of derivatives, including .143 Winchester and 358 Winchester. Modern loads include bonded bullets for controlled expansion, match bullets for long-range accuracy, and reduced recoil options for training. The 308 remains one of the most widely chambered rifle cartridges, appearing in bolt actions, AR-10 pattern rifles levers, and single shots with steady ammunition availability worldwide. 30-06 Springfield. The U.S. Army refined the .30-03 service round into a Spitzer bullet .30 caliber cartridge in 1906, creating the .30-06 Springfield and pairing it with the M1903 rifle. Engineers shortened the case and moved from a 220-grain round nose to a 150-grain pointed bullet at roughly 2,700 feet per second, which improved external ballistics and flattened trajectories. The cartridge served as the primary U.S. rifle and machine gun round through 2 world wars and into Korea, powering the M1903, M917 Enfield Browning machine guns and the semi-automatic M1 Garand that redefined infantry firepower. Bullet weights for sporting use span 110 to 220 grains, and the long-action case provides ample room for slow powders that extract velocity without stepping into Magnum recoil. Hunters adopted it for nearly all North American big game, and for many African plains species and ammunition catalogs reflect that breadth with soft points, bonded cores, and monolithic copper offerings. Military influence and long sporting service created a global supply chain that still supports the cartridge in bolt-action semi-automatics and even levers and pumps. The .30-06 retains a reputation for reach and flexibility, and modern components keep performance competitive more than a century after adoption. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, pass it along to fellow firearm enthusiasts, and subscribe for more content of this kind. Thanks for watching. 300 AAC Blackout. Advanced Armament Corp., working with Remington Defense, released the 300 AAC Blackout in 2011 after formal SAMI acceptance. The concept advanced J.D. Jones's 300 Whisper by standardizing dimensions for reliable function in AR-15 platforms with only a barrel change. The design shortens a 5.56 case to accept 30 caliber bullets while preserving overall cartridge length for AR magazines. Supersonic loads typically use 110 to 125 grain bullets at roughly 2,100 to 2,350 feet per second, producing ballistics similar to 7.6 to 39 in short barrels without magazine geometry issues. Subsonic loads run 200 to 240 grains near 1,000 feet per second, which pairs well with suppressors for exceptional sound reduction and minimal muzzle flash. The cartridge burns efficiently in barrels around 7 to 9 inches, so compact rifles and personal defense weapons cycle reliably. Military and special operations units evaluated it for close quarters roles, where suppressed fire and short overall length matter, and several commercial rifles, such as compact piston systems, capitalize on those traits. Law enforcement tactical teams use it for reduced blast indoors and for flexible ammunition selection. Civilian shooters employ it for home defense, night hog hunting, and range use, often swapping between subsonic and supersonic magazines in the same rifle. Ammunition and platform support now sit firmly in the mainstream.